So just a quick note before we go through the plants here. You know, some things you guys can pass along that we're doing in the nursery. Even though it's really cold today, it's really going to start warming up. That sun is getting a lot higher in the sky. So we're going to be out opening the entire nursery tomorrow and Saturday. So that means, you know, all the doors, door ends, houses cut into, extra vents cut on the sides. And even next week, we will probably start taking off some like tree covers, things like that, and possibly even taking off some of the conifers. So it's that time of year. It usually happens right at the end of February, the 1st of March. There's still a lot of plants out there that are critical to keep covered. But for the most part, most of the conifers, it's important to get those off early so you don't push those too quickly. Because if you do allow them to break, then you make them susceptible to like a cold snap in April. So that's an important thing to start working on. So, all right, so we'll jump right into it. Barberry, Royal Burgundy. This is one of the tougher barberries. You can see there we got a real nice package going on. Nice size. The one picture on the right was from late in the summer, and then you can see the more dormant photo there, but you can see we got really good branching structure, full. They've gone through several trims to keep them tight and compact. Really good color. It's got good resistance to bacterial spotting. Barberry are known for bacterial spotting, some types of rust. This one here has real good resistance to that. So, and we do have about 550 available. So, all right, next, Chamaecyparis Tempelhof. These are on a standard. We brought these in. This is something that it really wasn't in a production plan to do it, but we got a nursery friend who was producing these and you know, gave us a real good deal on them, and we felt, well, let's go ahead and pick them up. And they were such nice quality. They're in a 3 nice standards. You can see they're here at the nursery now, and there's not a lot of them. There's 94 of them, but real nice package. And those are on inventory right now. So, and that's I like you know, Tempelhof grafted on a standard. It's very tough. You're not going to get really any burn or anything like that, and it does really well as a top graft. So take a look at those. That's a little niche you can work in there. Next, Dervilla Cool Splash. You know, this that's a late summer photo there, but they're that big. They're nice and full. We did have a little issue this past spring where they were a little on the small side. Plus, they took a little bit longer to break. I think that, you know, with this plant being a lot heavier, it's going to be a lot tougher. It's going to break a little better. It is a first edition plant. It's noted for its deer resistance. It can be used as a pollinator. You know, it does get a flower. It's a yellowish flower, usually kind of inconspicuous. It's not a big showy flower, but it will get a flower, and it's, you know, it's good for the pollinators. So that's something to talk about. We got 900 plus in that size. So that nice, full, heavy plant, 15-inch plus. So hopefully we can move those. Next, hydrangea, little lime. We got quite a few of these in a 2-gallon. This is an improving winter program. You can see there the nice sizing on that. You know, it's just a little more dwarf. It's not like a really, really small dwarf. It can still over time get big, but definitely smaller than Limelight. You know, it's going to get that nice greenish white flower. Those won't start until we get towards July. But we got 1,000 of these. They should fit really good for price point in that 2-gallon for some of your more price conscious people out there. So hopefully we can work that in. These hydrangeas are highly adaptable. They can handle a wide range of soils. So real tough plant. So next, a little bit different hydrangeas. So we're going into the oak leaves. We grow the Alice in a bigger size. This is the first time in a long time we've actually had availability in the spring on this plant. We really pushed hard, bumped our numbers up, brought in extra liners to make that happen, brought in some bare root and shifted some threes that Jeff had to really build that up. You can see there, we got real nice structure, good branching. That's towards the fall there. Oak leaves are very, pretty adaptable for the most part. They don't care for wet feet. They tend to like a little more drier environments, so that's something to think about. But very tough plant, great fall color. You can see there, the fall color going on. But we got 900 plus of these, nice heavy 7 gallons. So hopefully we can move those. Jump back in hydrangea, vanilla strawberry. We still have availability on that? Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So Cheryl trimmed one. That's a today photo to kind of show you what we're going to ship dormant. And then you can see the more fall photo there. That was probably of a little bit older crop, but you can see what we're going to ship there. We're pretty much out of the pinks, the pinkies. We just have these available. We were able to move a few more of these on from a newer crop that was making it. And that's about it. I think we might still have Firelight available. Yeah. A little quick fire. And that's pretty much going to do it for the colors. I've brought everything in I could find for now. So it looks like those are going to be sold out for early May season. The next crops are looking good, but they'll have to pop and they'll have to get more in through May before we get enough development to ship them. And that's a good point there. You can see how that's going to ship here in a couple of weeks, and when we get things ramped up. We will be trimming off the dead flowers from the previous fall and cutting that plant back to anywhere between, on the hydrangeas in general, between 15 and 18 inches on the Pnyx. So that is that. Next is a microbiota. This is the same deal as the Tempelhofs that we showed you. Just real nice plants. We got these on, nice package. You can see there how nice those heads are. They're here on the ground right now. They're grafted and run up as a top. They're not super tall. Cheryl, how high is that head? Okay, so we're about 24 inches on the head height. So it's not a super tall one, but I usually find most people don't really want the real tall ones. So 24 inch with a nice 12 to 15 inch head on it. And those are ready to go. That's another nice tough one. It can really handle some real tough environments and give you something that gives a little bit different look in the landscape that you don't have to worry about for the winter. So, all right, next is Spirea Little Princess. We have a good amount of these. I know some of the Spirea are a little long out there on the market. We just wanted to bring this up. This is a 2 gallon, it's definitely pushing the 3 gallon spec. So, nice size, good value. Check that out. I think we got some good pricing on that. And I think most of you know all about Little Princess. It's one of the nicer, lower mounding ones. It definitely tends to spread more than it gets tall. And it will repeat bloom with some maintenance. It's not like some of the newer ones where the newer ones really do that more on autopilot. But any of these, like Little Princess or Gold Mound, if you trim them right after their bloom, they will definitely rebloom through the summer. So, all right, next is Ring of Miss Kim. There we go. So in a 7-gallon, this has a spec of 18. We're really at that 24. It's tipping 24. Hate to move the size up, but hopefully we can talk about that it's tipping that 24-inch. We produce these in a 7. Are we sold out on the other 7, Cheryl? Okay, might be a few Myri. I know we're out of the bloomerangs, so that we do have another crop coming on, but that won't be till get towards June. But we do have some of these left available. I know it's a bigger size, usually for the landscaper rewholesaler when they get going, but keep them in mind. We've got a real nice crop of them over there, looking good. So hopefully we can use those. Next is Woodward Eye. It's an old standby. Usually goes more towards the price conscious landscape. So that's where that goes. A lot of people may think about using something like this versus a boxwood. It's just a nice globe. Good color on this crop. It's still looking good out there. And we're definitely pushing the high end of our spec. This is in a 5-gallon, which is kind of the taller 5, so a little bigger than the 3. And we do have a few of them available. Highly adaptable, tough plant, good pricing. So if you got somebody out there that's worried about price a little bit or something, you may want to bring that up. Viburnum Little Ditty. Okay. So yeah, we actually brought these in because we ran out of them. We originally brought it in. I don't think people really knew what it was, so we had a tough time selling it. We decided to take it out of the plan. Then all of a sudden, excitement started to build a little bit. So then we upped our production and got it back in. So now we're chasing it. So story of my life. But it's a very, very unique viburnum. There really isn't a whole lot out there like it. It gets an interesting waxy leaf, and then it gets a real nice bloom. It's a one-time bloom, and then it gets these great colors on the berries, anywhere from oranges to reds to a little bit of blue here and there. I mean, it's a really cool looking viburnum. It's a low mound, so it's not going to get out of hand. I wouldn't call it like a spreading type of plant, but it's a lower mound, very, very tough. The weathered viburnums are known to go way up into zone 3. So highly adaptable for our ranges. It is a native. It's highly underused, I think. It's been around forever. It's just they've been able to strain it out to get a little bit better looking plant out of it. So I like it, and we got a few of them available. So, all right, we got another one in there.
Yes, spring lace.
Oh, spring lace. Okay. Yeah, so spring lace is one in the first edition program. It gets this really big velvety leaf on it, which might remind you of leather leaf a little bit, but it's not that type of viburnum. It's a very tidy, compact grower. It's not going to get big, tall, leggy like a leather leaf would. So it's going to have more of a growth habit like summer snowflake or something like that. I know that's a completely different leaf, but kind of that tight grower, but it has this huge leaf in it. It also has great flower. There is no fragrance. Okay. I don't know why So we'll get that. We'll get that fixed. It's not like a fragrant viburnum. There's a very weak scent to it, but I would not talk this up as a fragrant viburnum because if they're going to compare this to like a Jedi or Carsophyllum or something like that, it's not like that. It does have a very weak scent. It's there's nothing unpleasing about it, but you really got to have your face in it to really smell it. So yeah, just be careful talking it up like that. But it's very showy. It really presents its flowers up on the top. You can see it from a great distance, and it has that very similar ball, like a fragrant, you know, when it blooms. So it kind of has that ball cluster with the little pearls that start to open. So it's very similar in that habit. We like it. It's fairly tough. It's unique with that big leaf. And it's a lot more uniform and compact than even fragrance are. You can see here, this is on the right is a today photo, the size of it, and it's just loaded with buds on the tips, which will start to swell as we progress through the spring. But, you know, great size on this plant. We got 450 of them. It does have a light fragrance. They're not really talked about that much about it because it really the flower can go pretty quick, and its fragrant period is just a few days. So it's not, most xberries aren't touted a lot because of their fragrance, but they do have a fragrance. It lasts a couple of days. The flowers can last anywhere from 5 to 7 days, sometimes 10 days, depending on the temperature. It's this one here, you know, even though it's an azalea, it can handle extreme conditions. You know, it can handle a lot of cold temp. You can see there it goes to zone 4, so it will more than cover all of our areas. But in an excellent value for the size there. So next is Quickfire. The hydrangeas are getting a little limited on availability out there. We've done just about everything we can to try to bring some in, but we still have Quickfire available. That's been a fairly popular hydrangea in the past. This photo here shows you how we'll trim it back. They're in the process of doing that right now. So we want to ship a plant that doesn't have like leftover blooms from the previous year. We want to get that growth off there, clean them up a little bit so they break correctly. Plus, that'll help them break towards the base to give people a fuller plant as it starts to grow. So that's something you can pass on. That's an important step with hydrangea, especially paniculatas and macrophyllums to some degree too. That you want to get that trim back to force that base breaking to keep it full, or it will break from the tips and it will tend to have a kind of a hollowed out look. So not good. So you can see there we got 2,500 of them available, and see what we can do. Next is ligustrum. This is an oviflorum or California privet. It's a fast-growing upright privet, fairly tolerant to a lot of different conditions. It can handle a wide range of situations. It does have a small summer flower, not really known much for the summer flower. It's more for its hedging ability and its dense foliage. Be careful. There are a few areas in our sales territories that might list this as invasive. It's listed as invasive mostly on the West Coast, but there are a few places. It's not listed as invasive where you can't use it, but it's recommended not to use it. So people who are trying to be good environmental stewards where this might have an issue, they may want to be a little careful with it. But it's still used very heavily out there. It has a really cool, bigger kind of rounded lobe type of leaf instead of a more pointy leaf. So a little different look. Next, Magnolia Ann. We don't have any larger sizes available in Anns or Janes, but we do have these 3 gallons. You can see there we got some good structure on this 3. We're at 36 inches. We listed as a 24 to 30. You know, we want to be careful listing them too big. People tend to measure these things a little differently, so we want to be fair with the measurement. They will, the buds will be swelling pretty soon here. This is a plant that will try to really keep cool, covered a little bit, protected a little bit. So most of them will stay in covered hoop houses for a little while, but with some extra venting as we warm up here. So there is only about 140 of these left. We got most of them booked out. So if you need those, you want to grab them pretty quick. Other than that, there's not going to be any other crops coming online until sometime in June. Next is the Royal Star. So that's our white. You want to go ahead and go to that one. Also in a 3 gallon. This one's a little bit slower grower. They're both the same age, but Royal Star is a little more compact, a little bit slower grower. It also is one of the first ones to bloom. So it'll go Merrill, Messel, Royal Star, roughly the same time. And then the Anns and Janes will bloom after that, about a week after or so. Next is Viburnum, Summer Snowflake. This one, you know, from its name, it blooms in the summer, and it tends to repeat bloom throughout the summer. It'll have one main kind of push and then sporadic blooming as you go through. You can trigger another really full bloom if you do some light trimming right after the first bloom. So if it's possible to do some maintenance on it and do a real light trim, you don't want to get aggressive or it will not rebloom. You could force a rebloom on it. So really gets covered with real light, lacy flowers, pure white, fairly dense plant, a little bit slower grower for a viburnum. Not a dwarf by any means, but definitely more slower and a lot more structure to the branching. You know, it's fairly tolerant. It probably not the best for real wet conditions, but it can handle drier conditions to you know, standard moisture levels. So, and next looks like Wine and Rose. You can see here a today photo in the center. You can see we got some really nice branching structure. We're not small by any means. We will light tip it as we get further along. The one thing we found with Weigelia is it doesn't take well to early dormant trimming. We have done some of that in the past. We're going to shy away from that. We might do just a little tiny bit to clean it up a little, but you don't want to get in there and trim it like you would a hydrangea until you get probably closer to the 20th of April. Then you could do a general trimming. You really got to get some kind of activity in the root system. You got to start seeing some push on the roots, a little bit of white root, a little bit of plumping of the stems before you can do a trim. So that's just what note for everybody, and that's what we do. We got good availability on them. We got 3,500. I know we also still have spilled wine. Quite a few of those. We will be enhancing them, forcing them, pushing them for the most part, getting them moving on so we can try to get some leaves for Mother's Day. It's also a difficult plant to force early because it does need heat to force, but it really is looking for light. It needs good light. If you force it too early, the foliage will be completely green. It needs a lot of light to bring out that color in the leaf. So, so that's where we got to be careful when we release them for that forced. It's usually right there at the 1st of May. So, okay, that's what we got.